The shrill ring of the phone sliced through the silence of my expansive home office, overpowering the roar of the rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. The clock read exactly 11:30 p.m. An unnameable dread slithered down my spine, causing my hand, poised to sign a stack of business documents, to freeze. The number on the screen belonged to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Eleanor usually retired very early. She had never called me at this ungodly hour unless something terrible had happened. My fingers trembled as I swiped the screen. "Hello, Mrs. Vance. I'm here." Before I could finish, a heart-wrenching wail erupted from the other end, choked sobs mixed with sheer panic, making my heart nearly stop. "Olivia Hayes, Olivia, you have to save your husband. Mark has been arrested by the police. Oh my God, is my family cursed? Olivia, save your husband." I sprang up from my chair. The leather swivel chair shot back, hitting the wall with a loud thud. A deathly chill swept over me. The blood in my veins seemed to freeze. Mark Vance, my husband, the model of a man gentle, a steady office worker who was home by 5, who never touched a drop of liquor or gambled, how could he be arrested? "Mom, please calm down and tell me what happened. What about Mark? Where is he? Why was he arrested?" My voice cracked as I desperately tried to maintain the last shred of sanity to soothe my agitated mother-in-law. Eleanor's voice shrieked through the phone, sounding like metal scraping against my eardrums. "He was at a client dinner. He said he was entertaining clients to help your business secure a contract. He got drunk, and he caused a multi-car pileup. They say he hit the car of a major official's son. The situation is serious, Olivia. They are threatening criminal charges, 10, 20 years in a federal prison. They're holding him at the precinct. They said they're being lenient only because they allowed a call home to raise bail money tonight. You need to empty everything you have, cash, gold, dollars, everything. They are demanding $2 million in cash, immediately, to settle the damages, or he won't be released. Hurry, Olivia, or Mark will die. They're threatening to beat him in there. $2 million. The figure exploded in my mind like a bomb. That was the entire cash reserve I had withdrawn from the bank this afternoon to settle an exclusive import order scheduled for this morning. How could the timing be so cruelly ironic? But at that moment, fear had completely swallowed my reason. The image of my scholarly, meek husband shivering within 4 cold walls, facing prison time and the threats of powerful people, felt like someone pouring molten lead through my gut. Mark and I had been married for 5 years. I was a businesswoman, battling the harsh realities of the market. He was just a civil servant with a modest salary, but I never looked down on my husband. I loved his gentleness, his meekness, and the way he always stood behind me in support. I made money so he could hold his head high and our family could live peacefully. Now, he was in trouble for helping me with a client dinner. How could I stand by and watch? "Mrs. Vance, don't cry. I have the money. I'll be right there. I will save him, no matter the cost. Even if I have to lose everything, I will save him." I screamed into the phone, tears streaming down my face. "Hurry, hurry, dear. I'm taking a cab there now. Bring the money directly to the precinct. Don't hesitate another second." Mrs. Vance rushed and abruptly hung up. I threw the phone onto the sofa and bolted into the master bedroom, toward the wall safe. My hands shook as I spun the familiar combination. Click! The heavy steel door swung open. Inside were neat stacks of fresh $100 bills, smelling faintly of paper. I didn't count them or waste a second thinking. I hastily stuffed every denomination into a large leather travel bag. $2 million, sweat, tears, my capital, my reputation with partners now reduced to a passport to buy back my husband's freedom. I grabbed the heavy bag and fled my 25th floor penthouse apartment. The building hallway was deserted, the motion sensor lights flickering on with my hurried footsteps. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Hair a mess, face ghostly pale, stripped of the aura of a powerful CEO. I was just a wife in utter panic, terrified of losing her husband. Reaching the parking garage, the damp chill of the basement made me shiver. I tossed the bag onto the passenger seat, slid the key into the ignition. The luxury car roared to life and sped away, tearing through the night. The Saigon rain at night was a downpour. Huge drops like fingers lashed against the windshield. The wipers worked overtime but couldn't clear the blur. I floored the accelerator, blowing through empty red lights, heedless of the danger. All I could see in my mind was Mark's gentle face. He must be terrified. He's so timid. A mere lizard makes him jump. How could he handle being in a police station? About 15 minutes into the drive, near a deserted stretch leading to the Saigon Bridge, I suddenly realized I hadn't asked my mother-in-law the exact precinct. She had been too hysterical. She just said the precinct. This city is huge. Where was I supposed to drive? I reached over to the passenger seat to grab my phone. Empty. Only the money bag sat there. I frantically patted all my coat pockets, my pants, the car's console. A cold numbness shot down my spine. Damn it! In my panic to grab the money at home, I had tossed my phone onto the living room sofa and completely forgotten about it. Without my phone, I was completely cut off. I didn't have my mother-in-law's number memorized because she had changed it just last week, and the contact was saved on my phone. No phone meant no Google Maps for directions. In this dark, rainy night, I slammed my hand on the steering wheel, screaming in sheer helplessness. It was done. There was no other way. I had to turn back home for the phone. Luckily, I hadn't driven too far, only about 15 minutes back. 15 fateful minutes. I wrenched the wheel, the car turning against the wind, rocketing back toward the condo tower. My heart was on fire, silently praying for Mark's safety, begging for just a little more time. Back in the garage, I didn't even bother parking properly, abandoning the car in the shared lane and sprinting for the elevator. Each number lighting up on the floor indicator seemed agonizingly slow as it climbed to 25. Ding! The elevator doors opened, and I shot down the long, echoing hallway. My apartment was at the end. Isolated and quiet. I fumbled for my keys and my purse, but instead, the heavy oak door wasn't even locked. I must have forgotten to latch it properly in my haste and panic. I pushed the door open and stepped in. The lights were still blazing. Panting, I was about to head straight for the living room to grab the phone and leave immediately. But as I passed the foyer, a strange sound drifted from the master bedroom, making me freeze as if nailed to the floor. It wasn't the scary silence of an empty home, nor the whistle of the wind. It was laughter. A woman's light, giggling laughter, mixed with a man's deep, hearty chuckle, and the clinking of crystal glasses touching. My heart hammered so hard my chest felt like it would shatter. That laughter was too familiar. That man's voice, that deep, warm timbre I had heard every day for the past 5 years, wasn't that Mark Vance, my husband, currently supposedly terrified in a police station? A blast of cold air swept down my spine, colder than the rain soaking my skin. Every sense on high alert, I crept toward the bedroom door, which was ajar, letting out a thin sliver of light into the dark hallway. I held my breath and peered in. The scene that greeted my eyes completely shattered my world, breaking it into tiny pieces. In the luxurious bedroom, bathed in warm, golden light from the bedside lamps, Mark Vance was sitting on our plush, king-sized bed. He was shirtless, not handcuffed, and completely uninjured. He was wearing the deep claret silk robe I had given him for our anniversary. He held a glass of swirling red wine, his face flushed, his eyes hazy with alcohol and desire. Nestled in his lap was a stunningly beautiful young woman, wrapped only in a thin towel, exposing her bare, pale shoulders. She was peeling a grape and playfully feeding it to Mark, then leaning down to give his cheek a provocative peck. I recognized her instantly. It was Chloe Miller, my close college friend, someone I trusted enough to manage one of my spa branches, someone I considered a sister. But what horrified me to the point of nausea wasn't just the betrayal by my husband and friend, but the presence of the third person in that room. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor wasn't crying, fainting or panicking as she had sounded on the phone less than 4 or 5 minutes ago. She was perched regally on the velvet chaise lounge opposite the bed, one foot propped on the table, flipping through a thick wad of dollar bills with a satisfied, greedy expression. Ha ha. Was my acting good, son? Olivia bought it hook, line, and sinker. I heard her voice trembling like a leaf. She's probably already gathering all the cash and gold, running to the precinct. With this, the 2 million cash is ours, nice and easy. Eleanor boomed. Her laughter coarse and distorted, to the point where I couldn't recognize the simple, country mother-in-law from daily life. Mark swallowed the grape and sneered, his tone completely different from his usual meekness. Mom, you're the best. My wife is so dumb. Just hearing her husband is in trouble makes her lose her mind. She's good at making money, that's for sure. Screaming orders on the outside, but at home, she's as clueless as a cow wearing a hat. She has no idea her husband is right here, drinking 20-year-old vintage wine with her best friend. Chloe nestled her head into Mark's chest, her voice saccharine sweet. So, you got the 2 million? Remember to buy me that condo you promised? Okay? I'm sick of renting, and your wife is truly something else. 5 years married and no baby, and you still haven't kicked her out yet? Eleanor stopped counting the money and interjected with a venomous tone. Kick her out? Don't be an idiot. She's the money-printing machine for this household. We must squeeze Mark, take all her assets, transfer all the houses and land to Mark. Then we can throw her out. A barren woman like her has been blessed to live here for 5 years with the official title of wife that's 3 generations of good karma for her family. Mark caressed Chloe's back and smiled wickedly. Don't worry, baby. This 2 million is just the first step in the big plan. I've thought it all through. This fake accident is the perfect pretext to legalize draining her cash. Once she brings the money to bail me out, I'll claim it all went to back-channel payoffs to the big bosses, no receipts, no paperwork. That way, the 2 million vanishes, clean and safe, and no one suspects anything. Yes. Yes. My son is the smartest in the world. Now drink up. Let's celebrate this big win, and wait for that stupid Olivia to bring the ransom money for us to feast on. The 3 people, their faces contorted by greed and deceit, clinked their glasses of blood-red wine together, the sound echoing like a hammer driving nails into my bleeding heart. I stood frozen in the dark, my entire body vibrating, but not from cold, from a scorching flame of hatred burning fiercely, incinerating every last shred of affection. The story from here may contain fictional elements and AI-assisted writing intended solely for entertainment and to deliver a powerful moral lesson. My hand gripped the doorknob so tightly my knuckles turned white, trembling not from fear but from the lava of rage about to erupt. I wanted to kick open that oak door, to rush in and throw my designer bag right in the face of that despicable husband, to slap that core friend of mine with burning fury to rip off her hypocritical mask. But the reason of a woman who had single-handedly built an empire from nothing slapped me hard enough to come to my senses. If I barged in now, what would I gain? A loud, messy scene. They would deny everything, claiming I was seeing things, or worse, the 3 scoundrels might overpower me. I had the money, but I lacked concrete proof beyond my own eyes. Their words would be daggers, and I was currently empty-handed but for a heart spilling blood. No, I will not lose this naive, quick-draw hand. I must win. And I must win spectacularly, making them pay for every tear I shed. I took a deep breath, swallowing the salty tears back into my constricting chest. I gently released the doorknob and backed away, step by cautious step, like a stalking cat. The hallway's darkness swallowed me, hiding my trembling and pain. I tiptoed towards the living room, where my phone still lay silently on the sofa. I picked it up. My hands were ice cold, but my mind was red-hot with plotting. I dialed my mother-in-law's number again. The ringing echoed in the bedroom. Peeking through the crack, I heard Mrs. Vance clear her throat, signaling the other 2 to silence themselves so she could continue the act. Olivia, dear, where are you now? Mark is being threatened in here. Poor Mark. Eleanor's voice on the phone was as pitiful, shaky, and anxious as before. If I hadn't seen her cross-legged counting money just minutes ago, I would have believed her completely. I smirked a bitter, chilling smile reflected in the dark screen of my phone. I modulated my voice, adding a touch of manufactured sobs and panic to match their script. Mrs. Vance, I'm so sorry. My car stalled out in the flooded intersection. I'm calling roadside assistance, but the rain is too heavy, and no one is coming. I'm afraid I won't make it in time. Oh, God, why are you so useless, Olivia? Is the money less important than the car? Dump the car, take a cab, or run there on foot with the cash. Hurry, or your husband will be locked up for years. Eleanor shrieked, her greed evident in every urging word. She feared losing the $2 million more than her son's suffering. Yes, I understand. I will try my best to find another ride. I hung up and immediately powered off the phone. I cast one last sharp glare at the bedroom door, like a sickle slicing wood. Just wait. I have the money. Let's see if you live to spend it. I hefted the $2 million bag and silently left the apartment, gently closing the door as if I had never returned. Down in the car, I didn't drive to the precinct or call for roadside assistance. I drove straight to the private hospital where my trusted family doctor was on call. I needed a safe haven to hide the cash. More importantly, I needed to create a perfect alibi for the disappearance of the supposed life-saving funds. As the car cut through the white sheets of rain, my mind replayed the images I had just witnessed. Chloe Miller. She wasn't just a mistress. She was the chief accountant at one of my key partner companies. Her involvement in knowing my finances and masterminding this scheme with Mark couldn't be random. But what truly made me shudder was the way she looked at Mark, not just infatuation, but calculating possession. Was this relationship just about cheating for money? Or was there a darker, more terrifying secret I had overlooked for the past year? The next morning, as weak rays of sunlight tried to pierce the gray clouds left over from the night storm, I stumbled back home. My appearance was no better than someone crawling out of the grave. Disheveled hair, wrinkled clothes, eyes swollen from crying, or perhaps intentionally rubbed red. I had safely deposited the entire $2 million in the vault of Dr. Alan Miller, my close brother at the hospital, and spent the night rehearsing for the biggest performance of my life. As I pushed open the door, a thick, suffocating tension hit me. Mark was curled up on the sofa, looking haggard and gaunt. Apparently, after last night's early celebration, he and his lover couldn't sleep, waiting for my money. Seeing me return empty-handed, Eleanor rushed out from the kitchen, her eyes blazing as if she wanted to devour her daughter-in-law. The money! Where is the $2 million? Why are you back alone? Are you letting your husband rot in jail, you wretched woman? Eleanor shrieked, lunging forward and violently shaking my collar. I collapsed onto the floor, bursting into theatrical sobs, my voice cracking with feigned terror. Mrs. Vance, I'm so sorry. I couldn't withdraw the money. Last night, my U.S. partner suddenly canceled the contract. The bank has frozen all my assets for investigation. I'm cleaned out, Mrs. Vance. What? Mark shot up, his eyes locked on me. His expression shifted from surprise to absolute rage. Frozen? Are you kidding me, Olivia? You said you had cash yesterday. The cash I brought to the bank this morning to pay the fine was seized right at the counter. They said I'm involved in money laundering. Mark, what do we do now? I can't save you. I buried my face in my hands, weeping, while secretly monitoring their expressions through my fingers. Eleanor's face was bloodless, and Mark violently kicked a glass table, making it rattle. Their plan to devour the $2 million in cash had crumbled in an instant. Greed turned into crushing disappointment. Useless! Good for nothing! Mark spat, rushing toward me as if to slap me. But then pulled back. He took a deep breath, trying to regain the composure of a victim. The police let me come home to get paperwork. If I don't produce the full $2 million by tonight, I'll be criminally charged immediately. Olivia, figure out the rest later, but I'm not going to prison. Eleanor interjected, her voice now sickeningly sweet and scheming. Olivia, why don't you take out a high-interest loan? I know a few places that offer daily interest rates. It's high, but saving a life is like fighting a fire. You sign the loan documents, use the money to save Mark first, then sell inventory to pay it back. I shuddered. This old witch was trying to push me into overwhelming debt, so the loan sharks would suffocate me to death. But I was no longer a lamb for her to lead. I looked up, wiping away my tears, my eyes gleaming with resolve. No, Mrs. Vance, a high-interest loan means we all drown. I have one other option. I have a hidden villa in the mountains I bought secretly last year for our retirement. The market price is at least $5 million. My only option now is to sell it fast. Mark's and Eleanor's eyes lit up like headlights. A $5 million mountain property in Aspen? Why didn't you mention this before? Mark demanded, unable to hide his craving. I was saving it for you, Mark, but this is an emergency. The deed is in my name, but it's partially collateralized at the bank for working capital. I need to sell it fast to get cash to save you by noon today. I need you to sign a full power of attorney for this property, and also the apartment we live in, so I have the legal standing to pull the deed and sell it quickly to a realtor. I shakily pulled a file I had prepared overnight from my purse. On top was a photocopy of the deed, a convincing fake, of course, which I had rushed someone to produce overnight. Beneath it were pages of complex property transfer agreements. Mark snatched the fake deed, his eyes glued to the acreage, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. He was dreaming of $5 million and freedom, forgetting to read the papers underneath. He never suspected that sandwiched between the fake land authorization forms was a document transferring full ownership of this penthouse to my biological mother. Sign it! Sign it! As long as there's money! Mark snatched the pen, about to sign immediately. But just as the tip touched the paper, his phone buzzed violently on the table. The screen lit up with a message from a contact labeled personal attorney. But the content reeked of jealousy and command. Don't sign anything yet. I'm on my way up. Your wife is smarter than you think. It was Chloe. She couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. The message was like a splash of ice water to Mark's face, making him snatch his hand back as if he'd touched a hot coal. He looked up at me, his eyes shifting from greed to suspicious scrutiny. The atmosphere in the living room was taut, like a bowstring ready to snap. Wait a minute, honey. I'm getting a headache. Let me read this carefully again. Mark stammered, secretly flipping his phone screen down onto the table, sweat beading on his forehead. Just then, the doorbell rang insistently, shattering the heavy silence. Eleanor, seemingly pre-warned, rushed to open the door. The person who entered was none other than Chloe Miller, but vastly different from the naked figure in a towel last night. Today, she was clad in a sharp black business suit, carrying a briefcase, her hair pulled back tightly, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, exuding an air of intellectual authority. Good evening, Mrs. Vance. Mark and Olivia, Chloe greeted, nodding, her sharp gaze sweeping over me like a razor, finally resting on the file on the table. I am Chloe, Mark's legal counsel for this accident case. I heard you were planning to sell the property. I needed to review the documents immediately to prevent any legal pitfalls. I fought back a wave of nausea rising in my throat, forcing a look of feigned relief onto my face, like a drowning man grasping a log. Oh, thank God you're here, counselor. Please look this over for me. My husband is about to be charged. I need to sell this property fast to raise $5 million to save him. Please witness Mark signing the power of attorney for me. Chloe smirked, slowly sitting down opposite, picking up the file and scrutinizing it. She flipped through every page, her eyes narrowing behind her lenses. As a seasoned accountant, she could easily spot the intricate clauses I had cleverly embedded, especially the transfer of the penthouse. Rip. The dry sound of paper tearing echoed. Chloe coldly announced, tearing the most crucial transfer document in half before my stunned gaze and Mark's blank confusion. This document is invalid. The power of attorney is too broad, and it even includes the transfer of the primary residence. Olivia, are you trying to take advantage of your husband's distress to seize his separate assets? The law doesn't permit this. Mark's eyes bulged upon hearing this, his face turning beet red. What? You were trying to trick me into signing the house over? It turns out you're just a scheming, manipulative woman. I was momentarily stunned, silent. This fox is more cunning than I thought. She hadn't just thwarted my plan. She had flipped the script, making me look like the villain in front of my husband. Eleanor seized the opportunity, jumping in to shout accusations about me being an ungrateful daughter-in-law. But I wasn't about to surrender easily. I burst into loud, fake sobs, collapsing at Chloe's feet, tightly clutching her hand laden with gold rings. "Counselor, I've been wronged." I don't know legal jargon. I just printed out a template I found online. Now, if we can't sell the land, how will we save my husband? Or perhaps you could extend a loan to Mark and me. You're a lawyer. You must be rich. I'll write an IOU. I'll mortgage my life to you. My desperate act flustered Chloe. She tried to pull her hand away, but I held on too tightly. In the struggle, Chloe's designer Hermes bag was knocked sideways, spilling its contents onto the floor lipsticks, a wallet, papers strewn everywhere. And amidst the chaos, a small blue object rolled right to my feet. It was a baby pacifier. I froze, my eyes fixed on the tiny item. Chloe was unmarried and childless. Why would a baby pacifier be in her purse? Even stranger, a tiny letter was etched onto the pacifier. C. A jolt of electricity shot down my spine. C for Chloe. Or perhaps the baby's name. Before I could ponder further, Eleanor lunged forward, snatching the pacifier with lightning speed, stuffing it hastily into her baba blouse pocket, her face draining of blood. She was deathly pale, her eyes wide with fear and evasion. There was a horrifying secret being concealed in this house, and it went beyond just infidelity and money. Whose child was it, and why did my mother-in-law react with such terror at the sight of a simple baby item? Eleanor's action of hiding the pacifier was so swift that if I had blinked, I might have thought it a hallucination, but her furtive, evasive eyes betrayed everything. The air in the living room became thick, only broken by the quiet hum of the air conditioner. Chloe, despite her sharp cunning, showed a flicker of confusion. She smoothed a stray lock of hair, offering a forced smile, trying to salvage the situation. "Oh, that's a gift from a client for my son. I was in a rush today, so I just tossed it in my bag. It must have fallen out." "Your son?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning extreme surprise. "I thought you, Miss Miller, were single. Your career is taking off like a kite. How come you suddenly have a child old enough to use a pacifier?" "He's adopted. My sister's son. I'm his godmother," Chloe replied quickly. But her confidence had clearly waned. Eleanor quickly jumped in, waving her hands as if warding off an evil spirit. "Enough. Enough. That's the lawyer's private business, Olivia. Why are you prying? Focus on selling the property to save your husband. If the papers aren't right, fix them. We need the money before 5 p.m. today." I nodded, acting as if I understood, but a colossal iceberg of suspicion began to crack within me. Godmother? If he's adopted, why is the letter C engraved on it? And why would my habitually petty and selfish mother-in-law panic over a trivial baby item? I made an excuse that I needed to meet the realtor to get the legal paperwork perfectly aligned as the lawyer suggested, and I quickly left the house. But I didn't drive far. I pulled the car out of the garage and parked in a secluded spot at a coffee shop across the street, giving me a direct view of the main entrance lobby. I sat there patiently, like a predator stalking its prey, my eyes locked on the front door. About an hour later, Chloe emerged, looking sullen, and hailed a taxi away. 15 minutes after that, it was my mother-in-law's turn. Eleanor didn't leave empty-handed. She carried 2 large, bulky bags, in which I could faintly see boxes of baby formula, diapers, and even a thermos of hot Carré. She looked around furtively, then flagged down a ride-share, moving with the hurried stealth of a thief. I immediately started the engine and followed the bike taxi at a safe distance. The bike weaved through busy streets, diving deep into an old residential area in the 19th district. Finally stopping in front of a high-walled, single-story house tucked away in a winding, narrow alley, Eleanor paid the driver and quickly opened the gate to go inside. I waited until she was fully inside before cautiously getting out of my car and approaching the rusty iron gate. Through a small crack in the gate, I could see a small courtyard shaded by a rain tree. What I saw next rooted my feet to the ground. In the yard, a healthy, robust boy of about 3 or 4 years old was running and playing cheerfully with a plastic ball. The boy had soft, curly hair, large round eyes, and a radiant smile. That face looked exactly like Mark Vance's 2 drops of water, so identical that no DNA test would be necessary. Anyone looking would know he was a miniature version of my husband. Eleanor set down her bags, opened her arms wide, and the boy rushed into her embrace, chirping happily. "Grandma! Grandma's here! Where is Daddy Mark? Daddy promised to take Pin to the zoo today." Grandma, those 2 words hit me like thunder. Eleanor held the boy close, kissing his cheeks repeatedly, her voice sweet and doting, completely different from the sharp tone she used with me daily. "Oh, my precious grandson. Daddy Mark is busy making money to buy Pin a bigger house, sweetie. Grandma brought you some nourishing chicken and lotus seed congee." I covered my mouth to stifle the sob trying to escape. A grandson, 3 or 4 years old. That meant Mark had been cheating and had a child long before, perhaps right after we got married, or even before. For the past year, I lived with the torment and self-blame for not being able to conceive for the in-laws. I had drunk hundreds of bitter herbal decoctions, prayed at every shrine, and endured Eleanor's cutting remarks about me being a barren tree. It turned out to be an elaborate act. They kept me around only because I was the money printer, the milk cow they could drain to support this secret nest. I took out my phone, my hands shaking, and recorded the entire scene in the yard. Eleanor was tenderly feeding the boy spoonfuls of congee, her eyes brimming with the affection she had never once shown me. Suddenly, my phone vibrated with an incoming message. The results of the food sample I had secretly sent for testing last week. Lately, Eleanor had been forcing me to drink a bowl of her secret recipe Chinese herbal chicken soup daily, claiming it helped with conception. I had been suspicious and secretly saved a portion. I opened the email. The stark red conclusion displayed on my screen made me utterly collapse. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp. That nourishing soup contained no traditional herbs. It held a small amount of powdered contraceptive and several compounds known to disrupt female hormones. Long-term use would lead to permanent sterility and ovarian atrophy. My tears flowed. Scalding, hot, and salty. They hadn't just lied to me, stolen my money, or cheated behind my back. They had brutally poisoned me, taking away my right to motherhood to legitimize bringing their bastard child into the fortune I had built with my sweat and tears. The hatred within me flared into a raging inferno, burning away every last trace of softness. I brushed away the tears, my eyes turning as sharp as a razor. I now held the most crucial evidence: the secret child and the poisoned soup. But it wasn't enough for the final blow. I needed a finishing move that would ensure they could never recover. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the happy laughter of the grandmother and grandson. A plan for ruthless counterattack had already formed in my mind. As I walked, I pulled out my phone and called an old friend, a man who held a significant position in the real estate investment sector, the field Mark was desperate to jump into to change his fate. "Hello, Mr. Hughes. It's Olivia Hayes. I have a very large, thirsty fish who wants to be introduced to your high-yield phantom project." "Yes, that's right. Let him taste the sweetness before we tighten the noose." I hung up, a cold smile touching my lips. The act of selling the house to save him was old news. Now, I would invite my husband and his entire family into a grander play, the play of greed and destruction. But before the trap closed, I needed to return home and give my dear mother-in-law a surprise gift at dinner tonight, a gift that would make her wish she were dead. That evening's dinner was held in a bizarre, tense atmosphere. The table was laden with lavish dishes I had meticulously ordered from a 5-star restaurant. but no one touched their utensils. Eleanor sat there, her face ashen, occasionally sneaking a hand to her baba pocket where she had hidden the pacifier earlier. Mark was restless, his eyes glued to his phone, probably texting reassurances to his mistress. Chloe. I sat at the head of the table, calmly picking up a piece of Chilean sea bass. The sweetness of the fish melted on my tongue but couldn't wash away the bitterness in my heart. I put down my chopsticks, smiled gently at my mother-in-law. Mrs. Vance, you seem pale lately. Your complexion is grayish, and you sigh a lot. It must be all the worry over Mark and me. I have a gift for you to boost your health. With that, I stood up, went to the kitchen, and brought back a small porcelain tureen, still emitting thick steam. The strong, characteristic smell of Chinese herbs filled the air, making Eleanor flinch. Her eyes snapped open in alarm. It was the secret recipe chicken soup she forced me to drink daily. The only difference was that today, I had reheated the soup I'd poured out this morning and added a potent, fast-acting laxative. This is the special soup I made just for you. Following your secret, precious recipe, Mrs. Vance. I heard these herbs are wonderful for women nourishing the yin and replenishing qi. Please, have it while it's hot. I pushed the bowl in front of Eleanor. My gaze didn't leave her. The smile on my lips was bright, but my eyes were glacial. Eleanor looked at the dark, murky soup as if it were poison. She knew exactly what was in it. The vicious compounds she used to destroy my fertility now sat right under her nose. I'm not hungry. I feel a little full. Eleanor stammered, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Oh, Mrs. Vance, how can you refuse your daughter-in-law's kindness? Or, is there something wrong with this soup that makes you afraid to drink it? I pressed, injecting a subtle hardness into the end of my sentence, creating an invisible pressure weighing down the dining room. Mark, sensing the tension, intervened. Mom, drink it to make Olivia happy. It's a tonic, not poison. Why are you scared? He had no idea how accurate his accidental words were. Cornered and fearing my suspicion, Eleanor shakily lifted the bowl, closing her eyes and pinching her nose. She drained the bowl like a suicide victim taking poison. The moment she set it down, she clutched her mouth and bolted into the bathroom, retching violently. I sat there, taking a sip of wine, silently savoring the moment. This is just a light appetizer, mother-in-law. The next morning, as dawn barely broke, the real nightmare descended upon my in-laws. Thump, thump, thump. The violent pounding on the door reverberated continuously, threatening to shatter the solid wood. The whole household bolted awake in panic. Mark rushed to the living room, his face drained of color. Open up! Where's the debtor, Olivia Hayes? Pay up now, or I'll burn this place down. The man's shouting and vulgar curses echoed from the apartment hallway. I ran from the bedroom, hair disheveled, my face a mask of feigned terror. I rushed to embrace Mark, sobbing hysterically. Mark, I'm ruined. I'm bankrupt. Mark shoved me away, screaming. Bankrupt what? Who is that outside? Loan sharks. The bank froze my assets yesterday, and the partner canceled the contract. I was desperate. So I took out a $5 million high-interest loan to cover the import shipment, hoping to salvage it. But the shipment was seized by customs this morning. Now I've lost everything, and I have no money for the interest. They're here to foreclose on the house, Mark. As I finished, the front door was kicked in. 3 or 4 heavily tattooed, hard-faced men stormed into the apartment. These were professional extras I had hired from a legitimate debt collection agency to stage this scene. They smashed vases, shouted loudly, terrifying Eleanor so much that her blood pressure plummeted and she collapsed onto the sofa, gasping on an oxygen tank. This apartment is ours now. The collateral documents are signed. Get out, all of you, now. The leader, sporting a long scar across his face, pointed his baton directly at Mark's face. Sir, I don't know anything. This is my wife's debt, Mark stammered. His cowardice laid bare. He backed away, trying to leave me to face the music. Husbands and wives share debts. You trying to deny it? Hey, boys, drag them out. Take everything valuable to cover the debt. In less than 30 minutes, my entire royal family was tossed out of the luxurious penthouse. We couldn't grab anything except a few crumpled outfits hastily stuffed into black plastic bags. My luxury car was also seized in the garage. Standing on the pavement under the blazing sun, Mark looked at me with a furious, murderous glare. What the hell did you do, Olivia? Why take out a high-interest loan when everything was fine? Now we have no home, no car, where are we going to live? I kept my head down, tears streaming. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make money for the family. Now, we only have the old employee rental cottage in the outer suburbs. I managed to save just enough cash to cover rent and food for a few days. With no other choice, Mark and Eleanor sullenly followed me. I hailed a beat-up taxi and transported this disgraced family to a squalid shack by a sewage canal on the city outskirts. The room, less than 150 square feet, felt like a furnace under the tin roof in the Saigon summer heat. The walls were stained with damp mold, and the stench of the nearby sewer wafted heavily into my nostrils. Oh my God! Is this a place for people or pigs? I am not staying here. It's too hot. It stinks. Eleanor shrieked the moment she stepped in, covering her nose and stomping her feet on the slimy tile floor. Mother, bear with it. We have no money left to demand a 5-star hotel. Just having a roof over our heads to avoid the debt collectors is lucky enough, I replied coldly, dropping my bundle of clothes in a corner and slumping onto a torn straw mat, wiping sweat. Mark surveyed the squalid room, disgust plain on his pampered face. He was used to silk sheets and catered meals. Now he was forced into this corner of filth. He looked ready to snap. Do you have any money left? He demanded, thrusting his hand out. Give it to me to buy a fan and some food. I'm starving. I fished out a crumpled $20 bill from my pocket and handed it to him. This is all that's left. Use it wisely. If it's gone, we all starve. Mark snatched the bill, cursed, and stormed out. I knew where he was going. To find a quiet spot to call his rich mistress, Chloe. I secretly followed him to the alley entrance and hid behind a low wall. Just as expected, Mark was pressing his phone to his ear, his voice a pathetic whine. Chloe, save me. Your wife bankrupted us. We've been thrown out. I'm stuck in this disgusting slum. Honey, can you lend me some money? Or can I stay at your place for a few days? I miss you so much. I can't stand that stupid wife anymore. I held my breath, waiting for Chloe's reaction, which, unsurprisingly, revealed her pragmatic nature. What did you say? Bankrupt? What about the $2 million from last time? And the penthouse? Did you lose everything? Chloe's voice, tinny and sharp from the speakerphone, was laced with shock. Lost everything. Honey, she took out a high-interest loan and they seized everything. Now I'm broke. Save me. I love you. The line went silent for a few seconds. Then Chloe's voice turned cold and distant. Mark? Honey? I'm really strapped for cash right now. My company is having difficulties. I'm not exactly flush. Besides, your place is too small. It wouldn't be convenient for you to stay. I have a meeting soon. Gotta go. Click, click, click. The sound of the brutal disconnection rang out. Mark stood frozen in the alley, the phone slipping from his numb fingers to the ground. He couldn't believe his sweet lover, who promised him forever, had turned her back so quickly now that his fortune was gone. The golden goose had run dry, and the parasite had quickly moved on to find a new host. I stood in the shadows watching my husband's pathetic state, a smirk playing on my lips. Does it hurt, honey? This is just the beginning. But Mark wasn't ready to give up that easily. He picked up his phone, a desperate, savage glimmer in his eyes. He dialed a strange number, his voice trembling but full of reckless resolve. Hello. Is this David? That super lucrative investment project you mentioned last week, is there still a spot? I want in. I'll raise the money by any means necessary. I need the capital. I froze. David. That was the acquaintance I had set up to run the phantom investment scheme. The fish had taken the bait faster than I anticipated. Desperation had driven Mark toward mortgaging his life for a comeback, and the capital he intended to raise? I guessed it wouldn't be his own assets, but the most precious thing his mother had left. A cruel plot was forming in the wicked husband's mind, promising a coming scene of filial piety soaked in blood and tears. The cramped, sweltering rental room felt like a pressure cooker, making the air even heavier. After his secret call with David, Mark shuffled back inside, his eyes darting around, calculating and anxious. He stared intently at the jade bracelet I wore, the only heirloom from my deceased mother that I had stubbornly held onto, intending to use only in the most dire emergency. "Mom, what's wrong, Mom?" Mark suddenly yelled, rushing toward the corner where Eleanor lay. I spun around in surprise. Eleanor was writhing on the torn straw mat, clutching her stomach, white foam bubbling from her lips, her eyes rolled back, a terrifying sight. "It hurts. It hurts so much. Save me. I think I'm going to die," Eleanor groaned. Her cries disjointed and mournful, like a stray cat howling at night. I was stunned for a moment. Her acting was truly world-class. If I hadn't understood their true nature, I would have been completely fooled. The foam, she must have secretly swallowed a fizzy tablet or toothpaste. "Olivia, are you just standing there gawking? Mom is dying. Give me the money. Give me that jade bracelet so I can sell it and get her to the emergency room." Mark lunged, aggressively grabbing my wrist, trying to rip the bracelet off. I pulled my hand back, tears welling up, my voice trembling. "Are you insane? This is my mother's heirloom. I won't sell it even if I die. Mom just has a windstroke. A little scraping will fix it." "Windstroke my ass! She has cancer!" The doctor said she has terminal stomach cancer from last month, but she kept it secret because she didn't want to burden us with expenses. Now it's come out. Are you even human? Is a person's life less important than that stupid bracelet? Mark screamed, delivering a loud slap to my face. My cheek burned. But my heart was icy. Stomach cancer, such an old, worn-out script. Dear, foolish husband. Clearly, the two of them plotted this desperate ruse to strip me of my last asset to fund his venture into that phantom investment. Eleanor, hearing her son mention cancer, dutifully intensified her writhing, crying out more desperately. "Oh God, I'm going to die without closing my eyes." Is my daughter-in-law so heartless that she'd let her mother-in-law die in agony just because she's greedy for money? I held my face, sobbing, but my mind was racing. Fine. You want to play sick? I'll turn this fake illness into a high-security cage for Eleanor, separating her from Mark so I can deal with them one by one. All right. I'll take Mom to the hospital right now, but I won't sell the bracelet at a pawn shop. They'll cheat me. I have an acquaintance who is the head physician at a 5-star international hospital. I'll take Mom there. They have the most advanced equipment, and they'll let us defer payment. Hearing 5-star hospital and deferred billing, Eleanor's eyes lit up. Her groans instantly softened a little. Mark was overtly delighted. He thought his plan had succeeded. Call a cab, Mark. I'll stay outside the isolation unit to monitor Mom's condition. You go back to the rental. Make sure you lock the door securely, I said, feigning exhaustion. Mark nodded enthusiastically. Yes. You stay and take care of Mom. I have to go run around and borrow more money. Your bracelet probably won't cover it. He lied without batting an eye. I knew exactly where he was going. Without Eleanor or me monitoring him, he would rush like a moth to the flame into David's phantom investment trap. And to raise capital, he would do what I predicted, betray his mistress. Mark's retreating back disappeared down the hospital corridor. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Chloe. Your man just secured a huge loan. I heard he's planning to buy a house for someone in the River Oaks area. Do you know anything about this? Message sent. A spark of jealousy and greed had been tossed onto dry tinder. Tonight, The battle between the desperate man and the pragmatic mistress would officially erupt. And it would be more brutal than any drama film. My text was like the last straw, triggering the bottomless greed stirring in Chloe's heart. She received the message, her eyes blazing like headlights, buying a house in River Oaks, securing a large loan. Those keywords danced in her head, overriding all reason. Chloe had already started getting tired of Mark's constant whining about being poor for the past few days. She was planning to dump him for a newly rich timber magnate she'd met. But if Mark actually had money and was buying a house, she'd be a fool to pass up such a sweet morsel. Chloe immediately called Mark, her voice sweet and coquettish, a stark contrast to her cold demeanor from the other day. "Honey, I missed you so much. I was stuck in meetings these past few days and couldn't answer my phone." "Where are you?" "I'm coming to pick you up for dinner. My treat." Mark was wandering in a park, stomach growling. Only a few cents in his pocket. Hearing his mistress invite him to dinner, he was overjoyed. He thought his luck had turned. Mom was taken care of, his wife was foolishly staying at the hospital, and now a rich lover was back to pamper him. Yes, I'm at Tao Dan Park. Come pick me up right away. I have something important to discuss, a big business deal." Mark replied in a secretive tone to sound important. Dinner took place at a luxurious riverside restaurant. Chloe wore a vibrant red gown with a daringly high slit, deliberately flaunting her curves to seduce Mark. After a few glasses of wine, Chloe began to probe. "What was this big business deal you mentioned? Are you buying a house for my children and me?" Mark, drunk on wine and his mistress, began to boast. "House? Forget houses. I'm about to hit the jackpot. I have a brother who invested in an ecological cryptocurrency project with a guaranteed 50% monthly return. I'm just gathering capital. I need $2 million, and next month I'll have $3 million. Plenty to buy you a house." Chloe, a trained accountant, instantly became suspicious. She knew the risks of crypto schemes, but greed blinded her, and she thought differently. Is he lying to me? Or does he really have the money but is inventing the investment so he doesn't have to buy me a house? "So, how much have you raised so far?" Chloe asked cautiously. "I'm still short. I only managed to sell off some of your wife's jewelry for a few $100,000. Do you have any spare cash? Lend me $1 million for now. I'll pay you back double next month." Mark grabbed Chloe's hand, his eyes blazing with thirst for money. Chloe pulled her hand back, the smile vanishing from her lips. He hadn't called her to treat her. He wanted to borrow money. "Are you crazy? Where would I get $1 million? All my money is tied up in real estate." "You're lying. I saw you flaunting your $2 million savings account on Facebook the other day. Are you trying to be stingy with me?" "I love you. I left my wife and mother for you. Now you're begrudging me a few bucks?" Mark began to raise his voice, the brute surfacing. "That's company money. Don't even dream about it, you leeching freeloader. I thought you were someone, but you're just a broke man clinging to a woman." Chloe jumped up, splashing her wine in Mark's face. "You bitch! How dare you throw wine at me?" Mark roared, delivering a heavy slap that sent her tumbling back into her seat. Just then, Chloe's phone rang. It was the number of the timber magnate. Chloe quickly answered, intending to report Mark and ask the magnate for help, but the voice on the other end was furious. "Miss Miller, I just received an anonymous package. It contains explicit photos of you in bed with some guy named Mark, plus a recording of you calling me a stingy old fool who only knows how to throw money around. You're quite the character. Don't ever set foot near my property again." Chloe froze. The timber magnate was her last insurance policy. Now she had lost everything. She turned to Mark with eyes blazing with hatred. She assumed Mark, out of jealousy, had sent the evidence to ruin her. "You bastard! You set me up! You sent those pictures to Mr. Thompson, didn't you? I'll kill you!" The two lunatics began clawing and tearing at each other in the middle of the luxurious restaurant. Dishes shattered, vulgar curses echoed. It took immense effort for the security guards to drag the two wild animals outside into the street. Standing in the pouring rain, clothes tattered, faces bruised, Mark and Chloe stared at each other, panting. I have nothing left to lose. This is all your fault. Now you give me money, or I'll cause a scene at your company and let the world know you're a gold-digging, embezzling whore, Mark shrieked, grabbing Chloe's hair and yanking her backward. Chloe cried out in pain, but fear was greater. She knew Mark was desperate. He'd actually dare to do something reckless. And she had her own dark financial secrets at the company that couldn't be exposed. Fine, I'll give you some. Get off me. Chloe fumbled in her purse and threw a bank card at Mark's face. It has $500,000 in it, money I skimmed off for emergencies. Take it and get out of my sight. Mark picked up the card, grinning wickedly. He now had $500,000, plus the proceeds from selling my jewelry. He had gathered nearly $1 million, enough to buy an entry ticket to that sinister investment scheme. He turned and walked away, leaving his disheveled lover in the rain, his heart devoid of any lingering attachment. He was dreaming of becoming a billionaire, of the day he would return for revenge on me. I sat in my car parked at the opposite corner, witnessing the entire dog-eat-dog spectacle through the rain-streaked glass. I took a sip of hot coffee, finding the bitterness on my tongue strangely sweet. The plan to sow discord had succeeded perfectly. They had torn each other apart, exposing their true selves without me lifting a finger. Now, Mark, holding Chloe's dirty money, was rushing headlong into the phantom project trap I had set. He thought it was his path to salvation. In reality, it was the road leading straight to hell. As for Chloe, penniless, heartbroken, and ruined reputationally, she would soon face the feeling of social ostracism. Watching Mark's defeated figure disappear into the night, my heart sank. That man was once my entire youth, the love I worshipped. Now, he was nothing more than a feral beast corrupted by money. In the end, no one truly won this fight. We were all victims of greed and betrayal. I won, but my heart was shattered. I got my revenge, but my faith in humanity died with it. Perhaps the biggest lesson I learned was never to place my entire trust and happiness in another person's hands. No matter how much a woman loves, she must keep a retreat, a cool head, and an independent spirit, because when the storm hits, only you are your strongest umbrella. But the curtain hasn't fallen yet. Mark has the money. What will he do next? And will he discover the deadly trap awaiting him ahead? Clutching the bank card holding Chloe's $500,000 dirty money, Mark bolted into the night like a wild animal catching the scent of blood. He didn't go back to the rental shack, nor did he care about his fake sick mother isolated in the hospital. His destination was an A-list office tower towering in downtown District 1, home to the headquarters of Eagle International Financial Group, a name that sounded impressive but was actually just a virtual office I rented by the hour to stage this final act. David, Mark's supposed brother, was actually an unemployed theater actor I hired, now perched confidently on a genuine leather chair, swirling a glass of foreign liquor with the practiced air of a self-made millionaire. Seeing Mark enter, drenched and disheveled, David slightly frowned, feigning dissatisfaction but maintaining an air of condescension. Young man, you're too late. A golden opportunity waits for no one. The VIP slots for the Green City project are all filled. If you show up now, I can't help you, David said coldly, starting to stand up to leave. Mark panicked, rushing to grab David's arm, his voice trembling as he pleaded, David, please have mercy. I have the money, nearly $1 million in cash right here. Give me just one last chance to get in. I'm at rock bottom, only you can save me. He spoke while shaking, pulling out his phone to show the balance he had just deposited. David glanced at the number, smirked slightly, and sighed as if reluctantly agreeing. All right, I'll give you a chance out of respect for your hustle, but I'm telling you now, this is a high-speed trading project. High risk, but monstrous returns. You put in $1 million, and the AI system will trade automatically, guaranteeing a 30% return in 24 hours. Are you brave enough to play? Yes. I'll play even if it kills me! Mark roared, his eyes wide and bloodshot. He didn't bother reading the contract. He signed it instantly, and transferred the entire sum to the designated account. I sat in the secret monitoring room on the floor above, watching Mark on the camera feed, a sneer forming on my lips. He thought he was investing in Tech 4, but he was actually transferring money into an account I controlled, allowing the bait to sink deeper. I needed to toss a little more chum. The next morning, while Mark slept, exhausted, on a park bench too afraid to return to the rental shack for fear of the creditors, his phone buzzed. A notification showed a balance change. Plus $300,000 USD in investment interest from the first tranche. Mark rubbed his eyes, unable to believe his luck. He shouted with joy in the park, kissing the phone repeatedly. $300,000 in interest after just one night. Earning money this easily, why had he suffered years of dead-end employment? He immediately called David, his voice sycophantic. "David, the money is back. You truly are a living saint. Can I withdraw the principal now?" David's voice on the other end sounded regretful. "Why pull it out so soon? We're on a roll. The project is opening an exclusive super VIP package with 5 times the return over the next 3 days. But the minimum investment is $5 million. I was going to invite you, but I figured you were short on capital. I was about to call someone else." $5 million times 5, Mark's ears rang. If he had $5 million in 3 days, he would have $25 million, an unimaginable figure. Enough to buy back the penthouse, kick me out, and live like a king forever. Greed, like a venomous snake, once it tastes blood, swells until it swallows all reason. "Yes, hold the spot for me. I'll raise the money in 2 days. I will have the full $5 million, Mark screamed, his eyes bloodshot like an addict. Click! Mark began frantically searching for money. He remembered the deed to the ancestral land in his hometown that his mother, Eleanor, had kept hidden during her last visit. He rushed to the hospital where Eleanor was isolated. He couldn't see her, but he knew she kept important papers in the purse she surrendered at the reception desk upon admission. Posing as her only son and bribing the nurse on duty, actually one of my people. With a few $100s, Mark managed to retrieve the bag. He rummaged through it and shouted in triumph when he found the deed to the hometown property. He immediately took a cab back to the countryside and sold the ancestral land for a rock-bottom price of $2 million. Still short $2 million, Mark didn't hesitate. He went to the lair of Saigon's most notorious loan shark, Scarface 7. He mortgaged his life, even the projected $25 million return, to borrow $2 million at extortionate interest rates. In his crazed state, he signed the debt agreement without a tremor, confident that in 3 days he would be a millionaire. With nearly $5 million in hand, Mark cheerfully returned to the city. He treated himself to a designer suit and rented a luxury car to meet David and sign the VIP contract. And right then, Chloe Miller appeared. After giving Mark $500,000, she regretted it and tried to find him to demand it back. She had staked out the old rental shack, but couldn't find him. Coincidentally, she saw Mark stepping out of a gleaming Mercedes in front of the Eagle Tower. His air of supreme confidence ignited the greed burning inside her. She followed Mark into the elevator, and when she overheard his phone conversation about the $25 million package, she couldn't contain herself. "Mark!" Chloe burst out, her voice as sweet as if they'd never had a fight that rainy night. "How did you get so rich so fast? Let me in on it." Mark turned to look at Chloe with the disdain of someone who has risen above. He straightened his collar and smirked. Well, if it isn't Miss Broke, now that you see I have money, you want to cling to me? Sorry, sweetheart. This first-class flight isn't for shrimp and prawns. Chloe didn't take offense. She rushed forward, wrapping her arms tightly around Mark's arm, pressing her body against him. Don't be mad at me, honey. I was upset the other day and lost my mind. I still love you the most. Let me invest with you. I'll sell my condo to chip in. We'll share the good fortune, right? Mark paused to consider. $5 million was enough capital, but adding Chloe's money meant bigger profits. Moreover, seeing his ex-mistress grovel satisfied his male ego. Fine. Out of respect for our past, sell your apartment. Give me everything you get. I'll invest it for you. But remember, I'm the owner. You're just a tag-along. Chloe beamed and nodded rapidly. That same afternoon, she sold her condo for a fire sale price. Scrambling, she borrowed from friends and her own parents, giving Mark a total of $3 million. Mark then threw a total of $8 million into the Phantom project. The contract signing took place in a solemn atmosphere at David's office. Mark and Chloe, two greedy souls, walked in hand, their eyes fixated on the computer screen displaying the mesmerizing, fictional growth chart. Congratulations to you both. This is the wisest decision of your lives. David shook Mark's hand with a mysterious smile. Ping. The successful transfer notification sounded. $8 million. It was all in my account. I sat in the secret control room upstairs, watching the transfer screen. My heart pounded, but not with joy, with disgust. This $8 million was the blood and sweat of his ancestors, Chloe's home, and the mountain of debt they were about to face. They toasted each other with champagne, dreaming of mansions, supercars, and world cruises. They had no idea that the moment the funds cleared, the gates of hell had swung wide open beneath their feet. I picked up the phone and called David. Pull out. Wipe the data. Shut down the office. Phase 2 evaporation begins. The play had reached its climax, but before letting them fall into the abyss, I needed to give them one last, grand dinner, a party where I would finally reveal myself, not as a victim, but as the judge. Just then, Mark's phone rang. It's Mom calling from the hospital. No, it's Eleanor. She must have escaped the isolation unit somehow and was screaming into the phone. Mark, you sold the ancestral land? You're killing me. Bring the money back here now, or I'll jump off the roof for you to watch. Mark's face went white, but he glanced at the profit numbers leaping on the screen. He slammed the phone off. He chose money. He chose illusion. He had officially discarded his maternal bond, but he didn't know that call wasn't random. It was a signal I sent to gather all the actors for the final, classic curtain call. A celebration party on a luxury yacht tomorrow night would be where I buried them all. I stepped out of the room. The Saigon night wind blew my dress fabric, and tomorrow, the headlines would break, and this time, there would be no turning back. That night, the Bakdang Pier blazed with lights. The Saigon River wind blew strongly, carrying cool moisture, but it couldn't soothe the fiery heat of greed rising from the luxury yacht named Victory. This was the party Mark had splurged $100,000 on, inviting all his extended family, old friends, and even the business contacts he had groveled to. He called it a gratitude and major investor introduction party, a pretentious title matching his essence. Mark, dressed in a dazzling white suit, his hair slicked back, strolled around the crowd like a king, holding a glass of champagne. Beside him, Chloe Miller, in a glittering, crystal-studded gown with a daring décolletage, laughed flirtatiously, constantly boasting about the $25 million fortune they would claim the next day. His in-laws, who once scorned Mark as a wife dependent, now crowded around, fawning and flattering, each hoping to snag a piece of the success. Mark is amazing. I always knew he had the makings of a mogul or a tycoon. Chloe here truly compliments Mark. She looks so sophisticated, unlike his dowdy ex-wife. These cheap praises sent Mark and Chloe soaring to cloud 9. They were drunk on the illusion of victory, completely unaware that this magnificent yacht was, in fact, a floating iron cage on a river with no escape. Just as the party reached its peak, the gentle music abruptly cut off by a shrill scream from the stairwell. Mark, you unfilial son, stop right there! All eyes turned to the entrance. Eleanor appeared. Hair a mess, still in her patient gown, wearing flip-flops, panting heavily from escaping the facility to be there. She charged into the middle of the party, grabbing her son's collar and shaking him violently. You sold the ancestral land? You dared sell the land our ancestors left to chase after a slut? Where is the money? Give it back to me! The atmosphere froze. The crowd began to murmur and point fingers. Mark's face turned crimson. He quickly pulled Eleanor aside, gritting his teeth. Are you crazy, Mom? I'm entertaining VIP clients. You're embarrassing me. What land? I'm getting $25 million tomorrow. I can buy you the whole village. Just shut up. He pulled out his phone, opened the fraudulent app, and shoved it in Eleanor's face, showing the account balance dancing green. Eleanor's eyes glazed over. Greed once again triumphed over her anger. She swallowed hard. Really, son? $25 million. Really? 100% real. Mom, go change clothes. I already prepared a dress for you. Tonight, our family is number one. Eleanor excitedly went to change, forgetting all about the ancestral land. The three greedy conspirators regrouped, preparing to toast their family's golden age. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC's voice rang out clearly over the speakers. And now, please turn your attention to the stage to welcome the mysterious chairman of Eagle Investment Group, the man who brought this life-changing opportunity to Mr. Mark Vance. Mark and Chloe watched the entrance nervously, waiting for David to appear and be honored. The stage lights abruptly went dark, leaving only a single spotlight on the main door. The door opened, but the person who walked out was not David, it was me, Olivia Hayes. I stepped out in an elegant, powerful black evening gown, my makeup sharp, my eyes coldly sweeping over the crowd of slack-jawed onlookers. I was no longer the disheveled, bankrupt woman from months ago. I stood there, head held high like a judging queen. Olivia? Olivia Hayes, what are you doing here? Did you come to beg me for money? Get out! Security! Mark shrieked in panic but tried to maintain a show of aggression. I smiled, taking the microphone, my voice echoing across the river. Welcome, everyone, to the final curtain call for the Vance family. Today, I didn't come to ask for money. I came to give gifts. Gifts? What do you have besides a pile of debt? Chloe sneered. The truth, I said, snapping my fingers. The giant LED screen behind the stage suddenly lit up. It wasn't a stock chart or a congratulatory image. It was a video secretly recorded in the bedroom that night. Mark Vance in a bathrobe, holding wine, embracing Chloe, and laughing wickedly. My wife is so dumb. This fake accident is just a pretext. 2 million vanished. Clean and safe. The entire hall was dead silent. Eleanor's coarse laughter in the video rang out like a jarring screech, directly contrasting with her bloodless face. At this moment, the relatives began to look at Mark with looks of utter disgust. The video switched scenes. It showed Eleanor feeding kanji to the little boy who looked exactly like Mark. Attached was a DNA test result. 99% father-son relationship. And the final, most horrifying segment was the video showing Eleanor secretly putting the poison into my bowl of soup, accompanied by the forensic report confirming the sterile-inducing toxin. Oh my God. How could they be so cruel? This family is a nest of demons poisoning their daughter-in-law, scamming their wife, cheating, and having a secret child. I can't believe it. The murmuring exploded like an angry beehive. Mark stood paralyzed. The glass of wine slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Chloe trembled, hiding behind Mark. Eleanor collapsed onto her chair, clutching her chest and gasping for air. Turn it off! Turn it off, you wicked woman! You set a trap for me! Mark lunged onto the stage, trying to snatch the microphone from me, but 2 burly security guards instantly blocked him, wrenching his arm behind his back. I looked at him, my eyes devoid of any affection. There's more, my dear husband. The biggest gift is still coming. The screen switched to the interface of the Eagle Group trading floor. The $25 million profit figure that was dancing wildly suddenly stopped. A line of blazing red text appeared. System down. Account permanently deleted. My money! My money! Chloe shrieked hysterically, rushing toward the screen like a madwoman. There is no Eagle Group, I said, my voice calm to the point of coldness. It was all a trap I set. The $8 million you sold your house for, mortgaged, and borrowed at high interest to invest? It was all transferred directly to a charitable fund named after orphaned children the moment the transfer was complete. You are both clean broke. You tricked me. Give me my money back. That was my house money, Chloe wailed, turning on Mark to claw at him. It's your fault. You seduced me. Now I've lost everything. Mark was dumbfounded. He looked at me, then the screen, then his mother collapsing on the floor. He understood. His life had ended here. He had lost not just money and honor, but was also burdened with massive debt from loan sharks who never understood the word forgiveness. I stepped off the stage, walking past Mark's face, and whispered into his ear, "How does it feel to be stabbed in the back by the person you trusted most? Does it hurt? This is the price you pay for the 5 years of youth and the motherhood you stole from me." The yacht drifted lazily on the river, completely cut off from the outside world. No one could escape. The sinners were now isolated between the crowd's contempt and utter despair. They clawed at each other, blaming one another, creating a chaotic, desperate scene. But that wasn't the end. In the distance, the siren of the river police boat could be heard, growing closer, tearing through the dark night. The flashing blue and red lights danced on the water like sharp blades of justice racing in to execute the final sentence. Standing before the collapse of those who were once family, I felt no elation as I had imagined, only a deep, profound sadness seeping into my heart. Greed and betrayal not only killed humanity but also turned people into demons, digging their own graves. Life is fair. You reap what you sow. Only the reckoning comes sooner or later. The piercing, chilling sound of the siren grew louder, but it still couldn't drown out the chaotic screams on the deck of the Victory. The lavish party had turned into a chaotic marketplace where those who toasted each other moments ago were now tearing each other apart mercilessly. The guests, the in-laws who had once admired Mark, now backed away to the railings as if afraid of catching the disgusting plague named fraud. They looked at my in-laws with expressions of revulsion mixed with fear. Before the police could board, another black, aggressive speedboat rammed toward them, cutting across, sending a large wave that tossed the yacht violently. 3 or 4 hulking men, faces scarred, armed with iron pipes and bats, leaped onto the deck, led by Scarface 7, the notorious loan shark from the Chinatown district. The man Mark had mortgaged his life to borrow $2 million from for the project. "Where's Mark? Trying to skip out on your debt, old man?" Scarface 7 roared, his voice gravelly like rolling thunder. He shoved aside the party's weak security guards and charged straight for Mark, who was trembling like a leaf on the deck. Mark's face was bloodless. He stumbled back, hitting the liquor table, and fell backward. "Brother 7! Calm down! I was tricked. Your whole family's lineage is a trick. I don't care who tricked you. I only know you owe me $2 million with interest piling up. Today was the final deadline, and you promised you'd be a millionaire tonight. Where's the money? Spit it out now." Scarface 7 grabbed Mark's white suit collar and hoisted him up like a sickly chicken. "Honey, I lost everything. It was my wife. She tricked me," Mark stammered, pointing desperately at me. Scarface 7 turned to look at me. I calmly took a sip of wine, my cold eyes looking directly at the gangster without flinching. "Mr. 7, the debt has an owner. Whoever signed the IOU pays. Olivia and I are in the process of divorce. Assets have been clearly divided. If you want to collect, deal with him, but don't cause a scene here. The police are already arriving." Hearing the word police, Scarface 7 hesitated. He glanced into the distance, seeing the flashing blue and red lights of the approaching police boat. Knowing he couldn't act rashly now, he gritted his teeth, delivered a punch that felt like a falling sky to Mark's stomach, causing him to double over, retching violently onto the expensive deck. "You remember my face! Go to jail, and I'll find a way to make your life worse than death. Blood debt must be paid in blood!" Scarface 7 hissed, signaling his men to retreat quickly before the police boarded. Mark lay curled on the floor, clutching his stomach and groaning. Tears, snot, and fresh blood streaming from the corners of his mouth. The image of the glamorous tycoon from minutes ago was now just a pathetic pile of rags. Immediately after, The river police boarded. The officers stormed the deck, quickly securing the scene. Accompanying them were two stern-faced prosecutors. "We have received a criminal complaint along with complete evidence regarding intentional bodily harm, poisoning, fraudulent appropriation of assets, and violation of the one-man, one-wife marriage system. We request the following individuals cooperate with the investigation: Mark Vance, Eleanor Vance, and Chloe Miller." The cold clank of handcuffs sounded dry and chilling. Mark was pulled up, his hands yanked behind his back. The cold bite of metal locking his wrists brought him out of physical pain and into mental horror. He knew this was real. It was no longer an act. "I'm innocent, officers! I don't know anything!" Mark screamed, flailing in despair. It was Chloe. Chloe instigated everything. In this moment of crisis, all so-called love and loyalty vanished, leaving only the basest instinct for survival. He pointed at his mistress. "It was her! She plotted to trick me into defrauding my wife. She said she was an accountant and knew how to launder the funds. I was just a victim she lured." Chloe, being restrained by a female officer, erupted like a wounded animal. Her hair a mess, her makeup smeared by tears. She lunged toward Mark to claw him, but she was held back. "You have the nerve to lie. You're the coward. You're the one who wanted to steal his wife's assets for your scheme. You forced me to embezzle company funds to give to you. Officers, he cheated me out of both love and money. He promised to buy me a house, then he gambled away my $3 million on crypto. I am the victim. I charge him with fraud." The two who once swore eternal love, who once shared my marital bed, were now tearing each other apart, exposing the filthiest secrets in front of a crowd. They accused each other mercilessly, from unequal sharing of spoils to conspiracies against me. Even the most intimate, bizarre details were brought out as shields. "Enough! Take them all to the station," the commander ordered sternly. Eleanor, who had been sitting frozen throughout, watched the complete downfall of the son she had idolized and pampered. She saw the cold handcuffs on Mark's wrists, the hatred in her daughter-in-law's eyes, the contempt of the relatives. Her entire life spent scheming, being stingy, even being cruel enough to harm others, all to secure her son's future. It all amounted to zero. Worse than zero, a deficit in virtue, money, and future. The shock was too great. The blood vessels in the greedy woman's brain couldn't withstand it. Eleanor stammered a few sounds, clutching her left chest, her eyes rolling back, and then slowly slumped onto the cold deck. "Mom! Mom!" Mark screamed tragically, trying to rush forward but held firmly by the police. Eleanor lay there, her mouth twisted to one side, drool running down her chin, her limbs twitching uncontrollably. This was not acting. This time, she had a real stroke, a severe cerebral hemorrhage, the result of extreme emotional shock and skyrocketing blood pressure. I watched as medical personnel carried her onto a stretcher, my heart devoid of pity. The image of her secretly putting poison in my soup, her boisterous laughter over my suffering, came back vividly. You reap what you sow. She wanted to fake an illness to trick me. Now heaven granted her wish with a painful, lingering illness that was 1,000 times worse. She would live the rest of her life paralyzed, aware of her pain but unable to speak or move, watching her criminal son powerlessly. That was the cruelest punishment. As the group was escorted away, the Victory Yacht, Mark's symbol of triumph, became the scene of a shocking crime. The guests dispersed hastily, no one daring to meet my eyes. They feared the power and coldness of the woman who single-handedly dismantled a despicable family. I stood alone on the deck, the river wind whipping my black skirt. I pulled out the USB drive containing all the original evidence, gripping it tightly. My mission was complete. I had defended my honor and demanded justice for the stolen years of my youth. But this victory was so bitter. I looked down at the dark, swirling river, feeling 1,000-pound weight lift, yet my heart was utterly empty. I had won, but I had also lost all faith in love and marriage. "Miss Hayes." A hesitant voice called from behind me. I turned. It was my young assistant, the only one who stayed by my side. She handed me a shawl, her eyes red-rimmed. "Ma'am, let's go. It's getting cold." I gave a faint smile and draped the shawl over my shoulders. "Yes, let's go, dear. Tomorrow will be a new day. A day without deceitful people." I stepped off the boat, leaving behind the ruins of a rotten marriage. But the story wasn't over. The upcoming trial would expose even more shocking secrets, and what fate awaited the culprits when the prison doors closed. Would Mark Vance ever get a chance to start over, or would he sink forever into the mire he created? Life always has unexpected turns, and sometimes the end of one tragedy is the beginning of a late awakening. We often chase illusory values, forgetting that sincerity is the firmest foundation of happiness. The net of heaven is vast, but catches all. No one can escape their own conscience. 3 years after the fateful night on the Victory yacht, the trial for Mark Vance's fraud, asset appropriation, and marital misconduct finally took place. That morning, the Saigon sky was crystal clear, the sun shining brilliantly as if to wash away all the darkness of the past. I walked into the courthouse as the plaintiff and victim, dressed in an elegant white suit, my head held high, my demeanor confident, a stark contrast to the weeping, bankrupt woman from 6 months ago. On the other side of the bar, Mark Vance and Chloe Miller looked almost unrecognizable. Mark had lost nearly 50 pounds. His head was shaved, his eyes hollowed out, his skin sallow from his time in detention and likely from the lessons taught by his cellmates. Chloe was utterly ravaged, hair dry and brittle, eyes vacant. Gone was the arrogance of the seasoned accountant or the fiery mistress. When our eyes met, Mark quickly dropped his gaze, his shoulders trembling with shame and regret. The presiding judge, with a stern voice, methodically laid out each of their crimes. The evidence I collected, the audio recordings, videos, bank statements, and even the forensic analysis of the poison in the soup, were all nails sealing the coffin of their future. Defendant Mark Vance, due to insatiable greed and a decadent lifestyle, conspired with his mistress and biological mother to defraud his wife, appropriate assets, and even commit harm against a relative, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Defendant Chloe Miller, for active conspiracy, corporate embezzlement, and destroying another person's marriage, sentenced to 8 years. The judge's gavel fell with a decisive crack, putting a final end to a family tragedy. Mark slumped over the defense table, sobbing like a child. He turned to look at me, his lips forming the words, "I'm sorry," but he was met only with my cold, indifferent gaze. An apology now was more worthless than funeral money. Regarding assets, the court ruled that all land transfers Mark made for the Phantom investment were voluntary. He was solely responsible for his loan shark debts. My personal assets remained completely intact. The penthouse, the luxury car, and the chain of spas, they all remained mine. I walked out of the courthouse, taking a deep breath of free air. The hellish marriage was officially over, but the story wasn't finished. One more person remained whom I needed to see one last time. Eleanor Vance. After her severe stroke on the yacht, Eleanor survived but was completely paralyzed, only her eyes able to move, her mind still sharp enough to feel the pain. With Mark in prison and assets seized to cover his sentence and debts, there was no one left to care for her. Eleanor was transferred to a dismal charity nursing home in the suburbs. I drove out to visit her one late afternoon. The shared room was cramped, thick with the smell of disinfectant and the scent of elderly incontinence. Eleanor lay curled up on a rusty iron bed, a thin blanket failing to cover her skeletal frame. Only skin-wrapped bone remained. When she saw me enter, her clouded eyes snapped open, reflecting utter horror. She tried to mumble, tried to move, but her body remained helplessly still, like a log. Tears welled from the corners of her wrinkled eyes, rolling down onto her pillow. I pulled up a plastic chair beside the bed and placed a pair of steaming hot congee bowls on the table. The rich, fragrant aroma of Chinese herbal chicken soup filled the air, the very scent that had haunted me for a year. "How are you feeling, Mother?" "I came to visit you," I said, my voice gentle but laced with sarcasm. Look what I brought you. Chicken and lotus seed congee. Do you remember? You always said this soup was very nourishing. Great for women. You forced me to drink it every day, hoping for an heir. Eleanor's pupils contracted. She remembered the poison she personally added to destroy my fertility. I scooped a spoonful of congee, blew on it to cool it, and brought it to her lips. Eat it. But don't worry, I'm not like you. There's no powdered contraceptive or poison in this bowl. I don't resort to such cowardly tricks. I only want you to eat so you have the strength to live long enough to watch how your precious son pays for his actions in prison and to reflect on whether what you did to me was worth it. Eleanor couldn't open her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, soaking her collar. Late repentance was evident in those desperate eyes. She had spent her whole life scheming and harming others, only to have the only person who visited her, the one who spoon-fed her in her final days, be the daughter-in-law she once despised, treated as a villain, as a mere money machine. As for little Pin, I put the bowl down, wiping my hands with a tissue. I know you're worried about him. Don't worry, I'm not so cruel as to abandon an innocent child. His biological mother is in prison. His father is in prison. And his maternal grandparents have disowned him. I have filed the paperwork to place him in the Soft Children's Village and set up a small trust fund to ensure he is educated until he turns 18. That is the final grace I offer this family. Not because I pity you, but because I want to accumulate good karma for myself. Hearing this, the choked sob in Eleanor's throat broke out into painful, gasping sounds. Did she want to say thank you? Or beg for forgiveness? I didn't know, and I no longer cared. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and looked at her one last time. Goodbye, Mother. From now on, we owe each other nothing. Stay here and enjoy the rest of your life. I turned and walked away, leaving the cruel woman to slowly sink into darkness and eternal solitude. Stepping out of the nursing home, the fiery orange sunset was descending on the horizon. I got into my car, started the engine, and sped toward the glittering city center. 3 years later, I stood on the balcony of my new office, watching the ceaseless motion of the city below. My chain of spas has expanded nationwide. I have become a successful, admired businesswoman. I have also found new happiness with a man who truly cherishes and loves me. A man who cares not about my wealth but only about my joy. Sometimes, looking back at the past feels like a long nightmare, but I am grateful for that nightmare. Because of it, I know how strong I truly am. I realized that the sweetest revenge is not inflicting physical pain on the enemy, but letting them witness you living happier, more radiant, and more successful than ever, while they struggle in the filthy mire of their own making. I spun the diamond ring on my finger and gave a light smile. The past is closed, and the future is wide open. My dear friends, life is very fair. The law of cause and effect spares no one. Never trample on the trust and love of others for the sake of greed or selfishness, because the price to pay is sometimes more expensive than all the assets you could gain. Live with sincerity, fortitude, and independence, for that is the strongest armor to protect you against all of life's storms. Never allow anyone to belittle your worth. Be the queen of your own story. My dear friends, as we close the turbulent journey of Olivia Hayes, perhaps every one of us feels a mix of emotions, sorrow for the stolen trust and satisfaction at the fairness of karmic justice. But above all, there is respect for the tenacity of a woman who dared to rise from the ashes. This story is not just a drama about betrayal. It is a sharp, reflective mirror on self-worth and the boundaries of love. It reminds us that misplaced kindness is nothing more than poison that kills one's own soul. The greatest lesson we can take into our lives is never to lose our autonomy and independence, no matter the circumstance. When entering a marriage, one should bring a warm heart to love, but keep a cool head to protect oneself against unforeseen disasters. Do not let yourself become a tool for the greed of others, and never stop improving yourself, for knowledge and resilience are the only assets no one can steal. Live kindly, sincerely, but with enough depth to recognize evil, and believe that no matter how dark the shadows, the light of truth and justice always awaits those who dare to fight for their own value, so that every day we live, we can hold our heads high, living a peaceful and happy life. As the narrator of these stories, I lived every word with Olivia Hay's pain and resilience. I believe the greatest tragedy of humanity is not material poverty, but poverty of character, like that of the Vance family. When crafting the climactic moments, I did not intend to encourage revenge, but to awaken the sleeping self-respect in every oppressed person. You may find Olivia cruel at the end, but I see it as a necessary cruelty to excise the necrotic tumor from her life. Through this story, I want to convey that kindness without protection is meaningless weakness. We cannot choose where we are born, and sometimes we mistakenly choose the wrong person to love. But we always have the right to choose how we stand up after falling. The collapse of the in-laws family is a harsh warning to those who live by deceit, pretense, and trampling on kinship. I hope every listener will look inward and examine their own relationships to learn to cherish true values. Do not let silence and submission turn you into a victim of emotional abuse. Speak up while you still can. Remember, the law of cause and effect misses no one, and a person's core value lies in sincerity and self-respect. Lose those two things, and a person is just a soulless shell. I hope this story serves as a spiritual tonic to help those struggling in marriage find the courage to change their destiny. True happiness only comes when we learn to love and cherish ourselves first. Do not sacrifice blindly. Finally, I hope you always maintain faith in life's fairness, where the good will always find their own path. Live so that your soul remains tranquil, with nothing to hide from yourself that is life's most fulfilling destination. Finally, a disclaimer. The story presented here is entirely fictional and is an original work created by this channel for entertainment purposes and to convey profound humanistic educational messages. Names, characters, companies, locations, events, and details are products of the author's imagination and used fictionally. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or to actual events is purely coincidental. Every script and plotline is developed, written, and edited exclusively and uniquely by the creators in a creative, handcrafted manner. No part of this narrative contains reused, recycled, or unverified content. We strictly adhere to YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies regarding original content. Our goal is to provide entertainment, convey deep humanistic educational messages, and offer a touch of joy in life. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and comment below to help the channel improve. Now, goodbye, and see you in the next story episode.